And you are listening to solar-powered KRUU-FM, broadcasting from the Cultural District here in Fairfield, Iowa. You may not be able to see this, listeners, but I have my cowboy hat on today. I don't know what that's symbolic of, but it's nonetheless the case. Well, maybe it's because TV's in the house. That's right. We've got FMC joining us, Jason Strong, doing the good work there, which we appreciate very much. Peace out, peace in. And speaking of peace out and peace in, welcome to another edition of A City Business. We have Michael Halley joining us in the studio to catch us up on the latest haps at City Hall. And we do this every Tuesday following City Council meetings at 12:30 lunchtime, Thursday 6:30 p.m. dinner time, and the following Monday for breakfast time. So you can eat and get caught up on what's happening in a timely way. Speaking of timely way, Michael Halley, 4th Ward City Council person. Let's be specific here. How you doing today?
Good. I am a man, so you could call me councilman. That's specific as well.
Well, it is. I just don't want to imply that all council people are men.
That's true, because they are not.
Because they are not. And speaking of that, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here as always.
Looking good, and nice City of Fairfield T-shirt there for our radio listeners. What's happening in City Hall?
All right. This is a update review of our regular City Council meeting from July 28th, 2014. And maybe some other highlights that weren't at the meeting but are just interesting projects.
Excellent.
It was a relatively short meeting. It was under an hour. So I think Jason would agree that's shorter than average. All right, what do we have? Well, we had some kind of boring stuff, but it was... it's just business, you know. The city is like a business. You know, you have to do things in an official capacity. So we have to follow the law of the land, just like the rest of us. And so one example is we have a TIF district, an urban renewal district on the south side of town that encompasses the hotel, the newish American hotel, and also the property of the new Pilot Grove Saving Bank. And the advantage of using the tax increment there is that we can use the property tax created by the new buildings to fund upgrades such as roads to the buildings. So it's kind of a win-win for everyone. It doesn't cost taxpayers a dime to build the infrastructure, but by building the infrastructure, we add new property tax to the total pie, as you could say, the total income coming into the city. So once the loan that we take out to do the work is paid off with the property tax, that's new revenue for the city. So it's more bigger pie to pay for things like street repairs and amenities like parks and such. So the advantage of using these is obvious when you see it that way. So what we did with the American was we used the tax increment from their property tax to pay for paving part of the road from South Highway 1 to their parking lot. Did something similar with Pilot Grove. We're paving a road that runs from South Highway 1, runs parallel, and goes in front of their business. So obviously that's good for them if they're going to build a property. If there's no road to get there, that's kind of a problem. So they get the road, the city gets their property tax, everyone's happy. But what happened was, timing-wise, we needed to move on it before we actually, I guess you could call it, initiated the tax increment. It's not on the property tax because the building's not done. So we had to do a little paperwork, a little dance routine to go ahead and borrow the money before the actual property tax is on there. Again, I bore myself talking about some of this stuff, but this is really the kind of things that we really deal with.
Well, dotting I's and crossing T's is big part of it, right?
Yeah, so if you go out there, if you're driving south on Highway 1 across from the hospital and you see that road, that's what's going on. The road's going in, the bank's going in.
What is Pilot Grove? Are they operating? What's their...
They will be soon. It kept getting pushed back because it was a rainy spring.
I gotcha.
And but we have a deadline that we have to meet in order to fulfill the obligations of the agreement we had with them in terms of when we put the road in. There's also a new Casey's going in the corner they're moving. It's going to be at the corner of Libertyville. It's the northwest corner. Is that right? Yes. Of the Libertyville Road, Highway 1 intersection. So if you see some action out there, that's another property within the TIF. A little bit of, I can't remember if it's running the water and the sewer. Maybe it was what we're paying for with the property tax. There's no roads necessary for that one. So just little infrastructure upgrades that we make in order for the property then to be viable. And then we get their new property tax, which, like I said, makes the total revenue available for all city projects larger. All right, what else did we do? We talked about our Highway 134 Urban Renewal District. Set a public hearing to, it's called a consultation of the proposed amendments. Basically, when you create an urban renewal district, you have to have buy-in from the property owners within the district. They have to know what's going on and sign off on that. So that's Friday, August 1st at 10 a.m. at City Hall. But that's going to be just the property owners within that proposed amended district. Make sure they're okay with being part of.
In other words, that's an opportunity for them to express their point of view if they have one.
Yep.
Obviously, if people don't show up, it's taken as a go ahead. Is that the way it is, or it's just more?
Well, they can communicate in other ways. They could have a private one-on-one meeting. Maybe they phone in. But this is one way that the city
public
makes it open. And this is
let me rephrase that. Sorry, semi-public, because it's open just for the folks,
just for the property owners within there. So just anyone who's affected by it. But I listened to your show on Friday where you talk about world issues, and I was considering that, the way that we do things here in the U.S., and it's not perfect. Obviously, our government's not a perfect system. But at least on some of the smaller local level, we try to allow anybody who's affected by something to have a voice. I know when we were doing the Quiet Zone project, we sent letters to all the property owners who had properties near the tracks to let them know the median that went in might affect the way they pull in and pull out of their driveway. And did that necessarily stop the project if they didn't like it? No, but it's a courtesy that you tell them. It's inclusive. You're trying to include them in the conversation about things and keep them updated. Some of these other governments that we hear about on the news, not so much.
Not so much.
Not so much.
Although I do have to say, you brought up a sore point, because I can no longer get anywhere near with a basket of laundry to my place.
I know.
From any direction. But it's good. Exercise is good. I read that the Blue Zone says you're supposed to actually walk more and ride your bike more. So I do appreciate that.
That little gravel thingy isn't yours? Is that BNSF's? That little?
I think that is. I think that is the
That's
railroad.
Theirs. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry for the people on the other side of the tracks who have a little trouble getting into their driveway.
We don't. Some of us don't mind sacrificing for the greater good. I think that's a good cause. And,
I hope that the less noisy trains makes up for any inconvenience. That's all. I mean, just like with anything in this crazy world of ours, there's no ideal. There's give and take on everything. All right. We're moving forward on the pool project. We are actually having another public hearing. Again, this is where anyone, a property owner near the pool project, or anyone in the community can come and take a look at the plans, specifications, and forms of contract. So basically just spelling out exactly what we intend to build, where it's going, etc. So that is set for August 11th. It's our next city council meeting at 7 o'clock at City Hall. So if I was a property owner near the pool and I was concerned about noise or whatnot, I might want to come to that and ask, okay, what kind of fence are you going to put up? What kind of noise, buffering, etc.? Because I would be concerned about those things. So, or anyone, if anyone just wants to know, how many lap lanes you're going to put in and etc., come on down to City Hall. Last night, it was all the regular, usual suspects in the audience. It was the department heads. It was city engineer. It was Dave Neff, and there was no one else. I was looking around. I thought, no one ever comes to these meetings. Are we really that boring? And then the answer is obviously, yes, we are. But we try not to be. We really do. try to spice things up a little bit, make some jokes, but still, it's not happening.
Maybe have an opening act.
Maybe.
Music each time. Include some culture.
Yeah.
Just a suggestion. I don't know.
You know, that would be interesting if we did it kind of like a like a night show, you know, with the band on the side.
Right.
You know, and like as we transition to new things, like you said, like whenever we get to the action items, there could be an action item song. Dun, dun, dun,
That's
dun.
right. MC, I'm telling you, we got in with the TV and everything.
Yeah.
You know, we got sound effects.
Oh yeah. Now Jason's got to go and put that in post production. All right, he doesn't mind. I think he enjoys it.
That was my invisible drum crash that unfortunately our radio listeners don't get the benefit of.
Now I'm like thinking if I like toot a horn,
Oh yeah.
you know, can he do that?
Yep.
It's like,
But that would
right.
be tooting your own horn. So
I'm not tooting. I'm tooting Jason's horn
Okay,
on
good.
his behalf. All right, moving on.
By the way, you are listening to City Business. This is every city council session. We have a report after that just on what's going on, what's going down, and what you can expect coming up right here on Solar Powered KRUU-FM. Also seen on FMC, the Fairfield Media Center's website as well. So that's very cool.
Yep. All right. I think the juiciest part of our meeting, I've just been waiting to talk about this. You know, I know people get on the edge of their seat. Was the Ways and Means Committee had met right before the City Council meeting, and they had 4 items. I'm going completely off memory here, so let's see how I do. The first item was a request for some lost funds to be used for certain community projects. These were projects that had been, dare I say, promised. Dare I say, former city administrator had given the indication that funds would come from the sale of Logan Apartments towards these 3 projects. Logan Apartments has not sold at this point. Haven't got a single bidder on that one. So we looked into the lost funds, local option sales tax, and said, is there anything left that we can give this year? Actually, no, we're already in the next fiscal year. So anything we can give from what we haven't already earmarked. And there was some funding. So Little League got a little bit, Soccer Association got a little bit, and a little event known as Fairfest got some.
Oh, great.
And what happened was the city went ahead and used the local option sales tax on Fairfest to pay for the law enforcement section of that whatever bill
Fantastic.
as our contribution.
Wow, that's great.
So it was almost $3,000, I think.
Yep,
And
it was.
so that was, you know, I think.
And you know what? It was great. No incidents.
Yeah.
I reported yesterday on the news about a Massachusetts festival, a country festival with Keith Urban of all things, and 47 arrests for. It just got wild and crazy, and we were really. I mean, as many folks as we had here first time.
Yeah.
Pretty exciting.
It was very peaceful.
But thanks. That's fantastic.
Peace, love, and understanding kind of event. So I'm not trying to say the city's awesome, but you know what?
It's
to make
pretty
good
awesome.
on those things, I think was the right thing to do, because that's, you know, your word should be your bond, ideally. And I think it's important in government that you follow through on what you say you're going to do. So kudos to the Ways and Means Committee. I don't sit on that, so I'm patting these other 3 council members on the back.
Well, we do appreciate it. By the way, on behalf of Fairfest and the station, of course, KRUU putting the thing on, and you know, we're about ready to come in and do a little bit of a wrap-up report going into next year. So we're already, of course, talking about next year, but really pleased. Economic impact study came out very positively.
Oh, I can't wait to see it. Yeah.
And so all that. But thanks, and also thanks for the Little League and the other
Soccer.
Yeah, that's. I mean, soccer. We call it football here, but well, that's another subject.
Yeah.
We call it soccer in America because football we think of as that sport that you throw and kick, but that's exciting. We do appreciate it, and we are looking forward to actually. We did some great work with FMC this year as part of the whole thing, so I think we're going to have some nice footage to go forward with this. But thank you very much on behalf of everybody connected with Fairfest, the city of Fairfield. Very nice.
Yeah. So it was the least we could do. All right.
Appreciate it.
The next item that we.
By the way, folks, that was completely unplanned. I really didn't know. So you're hearing the excitement, right? Fresh and live.
Fresh and new, and All right, there he's drumming again for those radio listeners who can't see it. And that was a big. He really hit the cymbal hard. That's gonna need an extra big crash on post production. All right, so Ways and Means also discussed a concept that had been thrown around earlier, and that is the current law regarding the use of local option sales tax. Just to rewind a bit, this was put in place, I think, around 2000 by popular vote to support the building of the Jefferson County Law Center. So it's a 1% tax on any taxable items within the city of Fairfield. I know this affected when I was a retailer. It was 5% for the state for a very long time, and then we had a 1% school tax that was voted on. So then we had to start charging 6%, so we had to reprogram our cash register. And then when the local option sales tax for the city was voted, I think it was 2 to 1 in favor, we had to add and make it 7%, and that's the cap for any city anywhere. There's no additional taxes that you can add. So 7% is what people pay. Some people were concerned that if you add that, the people would then want to go shop somewhere else where they only charge 6% or 5%. That doesn't seem to be a problem because that tax has been going up steadily these last years. And so it adds up to around average maybe $400,000 a year. Now, what happened was it was first voted to be 100% for the Law Center. And then as that, I believe 10 years was coming to a close, it was changed to some community betterment or some specific projects. And I don't know if that required a vote or it was just council action. But then to move it and to renew the tax required another vote. And at that time, the proposal was a breakdown of 50% of the funds would go towards street repair and city infrastructure. 25% would go to sewer repair, wastewater upgrades, and the other 25% would be for community betterment, which is kind of a wide open term because that sometimes has been used internally in city departments. It can also be given to nonprofit organizations in town, which historically it has. Currently, about half of that 25%, so about 12% of the total, goes towards paying off the mortgage or the loan on the convention center. I think there's about 4 years left until that's paid off. And again, that was another thing that was voted on. So each of these measures has been voted on by the citizens to decide how we're going to use this funds.
That would be about $50,000 a year or so, right?
Towards that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't remember exactly what the price we got.
10 or 12% of 400,000.
Yeah, well, there's going to be interest and such. But I remember at the time when it was voted, it was 2 to 1 in favor. The city goes in and buys the property. And so it's turned out to be so far so good, owning that and having the Arts and Convention Center board. They manage it. As long as they maintain the building, the city charges them a nominal fee, like $1 a year to lease it. But moving on, so looking for the future, that breakdown of how by law we could use those funds can at times be a little constraining when there are other city projects or needs that a more flexible breakdown could help with. I personally don't feel that local option sales tax should be used for something like wastewater because the wastewater and the waterworks both are enterprise funds, meaning they charge users what they need to deliver that service. They're basically self-contained businesses within the city, as they should be. So why use something that is generally created by bringing people to your town or encouraging shopping in your town or just encouraging people to live in your town to do something like a wastewater upgrade, which really should be paid for ideally through the fee that people pay for wastewater. That's just to me, ideologically, business sense-wise, that just to me is more reasonable. So I would like to see that removed, and that's part of the proposal is freeing up the funding or the breakdown into being more about tax relief / community betterment. And that's what the county does. They use 100%, they call it tax relief. A lot of that does go towards actual property tax relief in the county, but another portion goes to whatever they need it for. And that flexibility and freedom may have kept us away from the whole bonding downgrade that we've experienced, which then in turn could have saved the city money. Because now with the bonding rating lower, we pay more in interest anytime we borrow. It's not a lot, but it's something. And so you may see this on the as a referendum coming up in the November elections. That's a good time to do it because the elections are happening anyway. So the city's not doing a special election, which can be kind of expensive. It can be $30,000 or something for a special election. So more on that later, but
roughly it's going to say what then?
I don't know the language yet.
Not the language, but basically it's just
more
shifting away from specifically wastewater, or
specifically wastewater won't be mentioned. I don't think streets would be specifically mentioned. It would be maybe just that would be 100% tax relief / community betterment, and that the entire amount, that 400,000-ish per year, would then be used, like I said, sometimes internally. So if the city needs a new squad car for the police, that could be used for that. Also given out to the local nonprofits, whatever, if something needed to be put into the general fund in order to keep our balances even and not get a bond downgrade, that kind of thing. We have that flexibility. And it's just like, I keep using the example of a business, but having that flexibility, even on managing your personal finances, sometimes being able to move funds around can be very advantageous. So more on that later. I believe we're going to try to get the actual legal language set up either for our first or second meeting in August, because in order to get on the ballot, there are certain deadlines the state has, so we need to get that in soon. So I'll have more detailed information exactly what the language will be.
Great.
The third item that Ways and Means considered was a request from the waterworks superintendent to raise the salary of 7 of his 8 employees by $1 per hour. And this was, committees are 3 members of the council was 7, so there's always a chance for avoiding a split vote. 2 members of the committee said yes, but then by the time it got to council, one had kind of reconsidered. And so we all discussed it and it went back and forth. But the reason I'll say that it did not pass, one council member made a motion, but no one seconded it, so the measure failed, it was simply because this isn't typically how this is done. Any discussion about salary increases is typically done during budgeting. And we did do one thing outside of budget, and that was at our last meeting, we gave our park and rec superintendent a raise. Now, we considered that a special situation, and we have comparables with all of our department heads and employees compared to other cities in Iowa. And our Parks and Rec director was being paid significantly less than all the other department heads and comparables. And he did have an offer into him from another town where he came from. And so there was an aspect of, well, if we pay him a bit more, we retain him, we avoid the whole rehiring process, which is expensive, retraining, which is expensive, etc. But this one, there's not a high turnover rate in the water department like other departments, which I'll get into next, which is the next item. Another department does have a real problem with retention because their salary is lower than surrounding communities. We don't have that in our waterworks, so it didn't seem founded that they needed this increase in order to hang on to their employees and to continue functioning well. And the comparables came in that department is paid on par or better than the average community our size here in Iowa. The next and last item was the police department. They're the ones having a problem. They have a serious retention problem because their average wage for their officers is so much less than our surrounding communities. They lose officers all the time who come here, they do academy training, they have an agreement that they have to work for a number of years to pay off the cost of that training, and then they leave. And a lot of them have gone to actually the Jefferson County Law Center, which is basically next door. It's the same building as the police department. They can move over there and get a better salary. They can move to Washington, Iowa, or Burlington, Iowa, or any of these other communities around us and get a pay raise. And sometimes they'll leave before they've paid back their academy training, and it's a wash for them because the salary increase they're getting somewhere else will cover, and then some, whatever they owe the Fairfield Police Department for that training cost. So it's an issue. It's been an issue for a long time. I was talking to the mayor about it earlier. He said he's been on the council since there were 2 former police chiefs, and they never brought it up as an issue. So our current police chief is bringing it up, but it is the first time it's coming to the council's attention. So we have to take a look at it. Interestingly, the police department of all the city departments has the biggest budget. It's our biggest single expense as far as city departments. I don't know if it's going to be making the whole budget bigger or just reallocating funds within the budget. I mean, money can't...
Maybe less cops, more pay.
Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
By the way, obviously, I do not... I say that a layman in the outfield because I'm sure there are quotients of what makes sense depending on size of towns, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, and then there's... I have spoken to Police Chief Julie Harvey about this. Actually, when you're understaffed, you end up paying overtime, which just destroys your salary budget more than anything. So there is an ideal number,
Yep.
But then how do you pay them comparable to what other communities are paying so that they don't leave? You can't just make money out of nowhere. So, and we're not going to do it. Just this one's for the listening audience and the viewers. We're not going to do it by giving out more traffic tickets or looking at ways to fine the public in order to. I know in my hometown, that was actually back in Ohio, that was a big thing where they actually put in a quota system for the police department, which my father was railed against. Yeah, I'll finish up here. He said it's equivalent of the fire department needing to put out so many fires, so then they go and start fires. He said if a police department has a quota, at the end of every month, you had to be on the lookout because they would ticket you for jaywalking. They would ticket you for going 2 miles over the speed limit because the officers had to fulfill their quota of so many tickets. I agree. Dad, you were right. That's a ridiculous framework. We don't do that here in Fairfield, and as long as I'm on the council, we never will. So that's not an option, but we just got to figure this out so that we don't keep losing officers, retraining them, losing them. And currently, I think half the force is newbies. I mean, they're fresh officers, and there's nothing wrong with fresh faces, but you want to keep some continuity. You want some people who have been here 10, 20 years. Even
for their families or whatnot. I mean, you want to have
stability.
Some stability.
Yep.
No question.
All right. I'll say in 1 minute.
Okay.
We also discussed the search for a new city administrator. So
all right.
Doug Flournoy is the chair of the personnel committee. We basically just kind of compiled some questions for search firms. We're going to have one come in late August to the council meeting. We'll interview that representative, and then again the September meetings as well. And that'll give the council a chance to pick a firm before we move forward. And it's really important. We have questions that, based on our last 2 experiences, in terms of following through on referrals, and sometimes the firm will whittle down the applicants for you. Maybe we don't want that. Maybe we want to be able to do that ourselves, because what standards are they using? Are they using standards that we would use? So we, have some concerns and questions that we want to make sure that we do this search the right way and get the right candidate. And hopefully we will. I keep thinking third time's a charm. It's the third time I've been through this in 4.5 years. So third time's a charm. I think we're going to get it this time.
Well, thanks so much. That was actually for not a very long meeting. I cover a lot of bases there. And I also want to mention, of course, just on the way out here, August 2nd, Southeast Iowa Blues Society and Jefferson County Fair Board presenting the first annual Blue Ribbon Blues Festival. Tammy and the good folks over there, a lot of good sponsors on board, including KRUU, Ghost Town Blues Band coming from Memphis, and much more as we go out with our theme song here, Siesta Ocha, City Business with Michael Halley, James Moore. We'll be back next time. Keep it tuned.